It is still very hard for me to believe in this, guys, but the truth is that the original PlayStation is turning 25 years old today. And greetings, YouTube gamers! Welcome to a very special episode of Retro Raider. My name is Johnny Retro and welcome to the channel. I'm not even going to roll the intro, I'm just going to jump right into the video. And like I said, today is a very special episode. Today is a very special day because this machine right here, and you guys know this is no secret if you follow my channel, the original PlayStation truly is my favorite video game console of all time. Not only because it was the very first console that I had at my home, but it is also my favorite gaming library of all time. I could be here talking about the PS1 for hours and hours, but we don't have that time, unfortunately. So I decided just to make this video as a celebration for the 25th anniversary of the PS1. So my first contact with the PS1, I really don't know if this was late 94 or early 95, because the machine was originally released in Japan in 94, but here in Europe we only got a release 1 year later in 95. But I totally remember watching commercials of the machine and reading about it in gaming magazines. And when CD-based gaming became a thing, actually my first video game console was the Sega Saturn, but we ended up trading it for the PS1. Good choice, at least in my opinion. But that's a topic for another video, but we did got the PS1 in late 95, I believe. And me and my family, my father and my mom, we really fell in love with this machine. And you know, my parents weren't gamers, and they still aren't, but we all have really good memories with the original PlayStation. So when I think about this machine, I think about, you know, my childhood. And the legacy that machine left, well, not only the PS2, of course, the PS3, the PS4 that it is still kicking, and of course, you know, the upcoming PS5, which I believe it is going to be a hit, but the true legacy of the PS1 is this right here. It's amazing library. And I've always said this, what defines a gaming system, a video game console, is its library. And for me, of course, that this is just personal preference. This one is a hard one to beat. So many good franchises start with the original PlayStation. I mean, Tekken, Resident Evil, Tomb Raider. Actually, Tomb Raider started on the Sega Saturn, but I mean, when we think about the classic Tomb Raider games, we think about the original PS1. The golden era of Final Fantasy and its amazing JRPGs exclusive to the PS1. And it is one of those libraries that it does have a little bit of everything for every gamer out there. And back in the day, in the mid-90s, I mean, this was a turning point in the gaming scene because we were used to, you know, 2D gaming, 16-bit, which it is a sweet spot. It is the sweet spot when it comes to 2D gaming, and I love the fourth generation of video game consoles. I mean, the Super Nintendo, the Sega Mega Drive, but when CD-ROMs came to the market and replaced cartridges, that's when, you know, 3D gaming became, you know, the staple. And what Sony brought to the market with the PS1 was a different flavor, if you will, because at that time what we had pretty much was Sega and Nintendo. Of course that we had other companies, other machines out there, but you know, the staple was indeed Sega and Nintendo. Of course with you know, still on the 16-bit department. Super Nintendo, amazing machine. Mega Drive, you know, my personal favorite 16-bit machine out there. But then we all know the stories. Nintendo didn't went forward with the Sony PlayStation add-on for the SNES, and Sega was doing, you know, some very bad marketing decisions with the Mega Drive, of course, with the Mega CD, the 32X, which they thought it was going to be the future, but it wasn't. Then of course Sega brought the Saturn, and don't get me wrong, the Sega Saturn is an amazing machine with a very good solid library, and for a long period of time, especially here in Portugal, the Saturn outsold the PS1. Then of course a little game called Final Fantasy VII came and it totally shifted the market. Then of course the N64 came, and it was a revolutionary machine for the Nintendo department, but it didn't stand up against the PS1. And of course, for me personally, looking back, as someone who started gaming at the age of 5, again, during the 2D, 4th generation, 16-bit era, you know, watching and being present at this transition to 3D gaming was a very interesting time indeed to be a gamer. And nowadays, you know, gaming technology is, you know, totally out of the park. But honestly, guys, I don't regret one thing about my childhood. I feel very lucky because I think that this was indeed a very special and interesting time to be a gamer, you know, the 90s. And this transition, once again, was crazy. And growing up in the middle of this gaming mayhem, you know, 2D, 3D, pixels, polygons was very interesting. And it almost felt that we were starting from scratch. And it took a while to get used to. Now, I'm just going to run through a couple of these games, and first things first, I have to talk about the demo one. This was the original pack-in demo that came with the system, and I've already told this story before. For a very long time, this demo right here was the only software that I had to play for the PS1. Because once again, guys, my parents weren't gamers, and when they got me the PS1, they thought that, you know, this was it. But we do have a couple of great ones right here. We have games like, you know, Jumping Flash, a classic. We have Battle Arena Toshinden, and of course that we have Extreme Games. Which leads me to the first game that I want to talk about today. And first things first, guys, sorry for the glare. You guys know PS1 boxes, it is what it is. So yeah, the first game right here, Extreme Games. I have a full video about this game, and I will leave the link of that video in the description box below for you guys to check it out. Because yeah, this is indeed a very special game for me. Extreme Games. I'm not very much into racing and sports games, but this is a special one because it was the very first video game that I ever owned. And I bought it with my own savings, and overall I think that it is a very decent game and it still holds up pretty damn well. Next, you guys probably heard about this one. Actually, two games right here. Tombi 1 and Tombi 2. This one I got it back when I was a kid, and the second one I got it very recently, actually. If you guys are collectors, you know these are very, very hard to get, very expensive games indeed, but I have them because, again, you know, this is part of my childhood, and I love these games, especially the first one. And please do yourselves a favor, if you can't get an original copy, please play the ROMs because, you know, especially the first game, Tombi 1, or Tomba if you live outside of Europe. This game is very quirky, very original, a very good game indeed. Now, these next three games are also very special, and here's the thing. Some kids in the 90s grew up with Sonic on the Sega department. Other kids grew up with Mario. But me, as a Sony kid, as a PS1 owner, I grew up with the iconic mascot, Crash Bandicoot. The first one was a revolutionary 3D platformer indeed. Classic game, very nostalgic, one of my favorites in the series. The second game, well, this one took the formula of Crash Bandicoot 1, and it really took it to the next level. But then we got Crash Bandicoot Warped. The third installment in the series, for me, this one is the best Crash Bandicoot game ever made. Again, the basic formula is still there, but then we have, you know, time traveling. We go to the medieval era, we go to the future, we go to space, and still looking back, guys, this specific one right here, this game is a huge mark on my childhood. Now, speaking about iconic franchises and video game characters, we have the OG Tomb Raider lineup. Okay, the 5 classic games right here, of course that we have to start with Tomb Raider 1. Yes, originally released for the Sega Saturn, to me, the PS1 version is the most iconic one, and it is the best one. And this was a very, very important game indeed to my family, because I beaten this game with my parents. And this is actually a funny story, guys, because my parents had to get a separate memory card, because we had one main memory card in which we were playing the game together. Then, of course, I had to go to bed, but my parents kept playing the game with another save and a different memory card. And I used to get pissed about it because, you know, in the next day when we were playing together, they already knew what was going to happen. But now looking back, that's a very funny and nostalgic story for me. Then we got Tomb Raider 2, and I always have a hard time picking a favorite Tomb Raider game, and I'm having different favorites all the time, but I think that this is the one for me, Tomb Raider 2. And like in Crash Bandicoot, this one grabbed the formula of the first game, and it brought different elements and different flavors. The third game, well, this one brought even more elements compared to the previous games, but for some reason, I don't like it as much as the previous games, but it's still a very solid. Then we got The Last Revelation, and this entry kinda splits the fans. Some fans love it, some fans don't love it. Me personally, I love this game. I think that it is one of the best in the entire franchise. And I'm a suspect here because the true reason why I like this game is not only the story, but the fact that it occurs entirely in Egypt. And spoiler alert guys, if you never played The Last Revelation, well, this was supposed to be the end of Lara Croft, the end of the franchise. Fortunately, it wasn't, but you have to admit it that the ending of this game is... yeah, it is heartbreaking. Which leads me to the last Tomb Raider game on the PS1, Tomb Raider Chronicles. I didn't enjoy this game that much back in the day. I appreciate it now a little bit more, but the thing with this one was they brought Lara back. But I think that the delivery was not presented in a way that we the fans wanted to. I mean, not a bad game overall, I appreciate it for what it is, but it was a little bit disappointing back in the day. Now, let me just take these out of the way and talk about a very famous, I would say famous, fighting franchise called Tekken. Of course that every gamer knows about Tekken, it is still kicking this day, but it all started right here with Tekken 1. Now, as someone that moved from Virtua Fighter into Tekken, well, the original Tekken game was not the most impressive one. Some gamers prefer virtual fighting when it comes to early 3D fighting games, but you know, the original Tekken for me is the most nostalgic one. But then we got Tekken 2, and this one is amazing. The graphics were better, the mechanics, the animations, the characters were very appealing, the story and the background was amazing, and what I really like about this game is the soundtrack. Especially the opening theme, because the opening cinematic of Tekken 2 is by far one of my favorite cinematics of all time. And I would also say that this is one of the hardest games in the entire franchise. Last but not least, we have my personal favorite, Tekken 3. The reason why Tekken 3 is my favorite, well, my favorite characters from the Tekken universe are on this one. Of course, better graphics, and the story really blew up. And usually fighting games are not known for, you know, its immersive storyline, but Tekken is a different one because it does have a very original and deep story. And the previous two games were kinda, you know, the settling of the plot, and Tekken 3, you know, it really blew up. Then we have Medieval, the first one of the most iconic games on the original PS1. Nostalgic, iconic, the remake on the PS4 is amazing. And a lot of fans are going to disagree with me, but I think that Medieval 2 is a superior game. And it was actually one of the first games that I've played on my native language, Portuguese, right here. And I'm truly hoping, fingers crossed, for a remake of Medieval 2. Now, last but not least, guys, I have to talk about this little game called Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII was the selling point for the original PlayStation, and it is without a doubt, guys, you know, let's cut to the chase. This is by far one of the best Final Fantasy games out there, one of the best JRPGs ever. This game was not the first RPG that I ever played, but it was my introduction to Japanese role-playing games, and I mean, what an amazing beginning it was. Amazing game for its time, yes, without a doubt. Iconic, also yes, but did it age well? No, I have to say no. I think that if you are under 20, playing this game nowadays, it might feel, you know, outdated and even a little bit weird. But for me and for a lot of you, this game is still a masterpiece like day one. And of course that we are getting the remake. Fingers crossed for the remake. And why not being a little bit controversial here? Final Fantasy VII, again, iconic game, amazing game. This one kinda splits the fans, but to me, this one is the best, my favorite Final Fantasy game ever made. And I'm talking about Final Fantasy VIII. I do understand and respect why a lot of people don't like this game, but to me, I love the game. It is just my personal opinion, but I appreciate this game for its story, for its mechanics, and I know that a lot of you guys didn't enjoy the mechanics back in the day, but I love the characters, I love the world, I love the graphics, I love the soundtrack, and without a doubt, guys, one of my favorite video games of all time. Now, to sum it up, guys, these games that I've talked about are just a couple of my personal favorites. Of course that I could be here talking about games like Resident Evil, Pandemonium, the Die Hard trilogy. What else? Abe's Oddworld, Bloody Roar, Dino Crisis. I mean, such an amazing library. And yeah, this was the video, guys. This was very nostalgic for me. I loved making this video. And I have to end this one with happy birthday, PS1. And let me know about you guys. Let me know down below about your early memories with the original PlayStation. And let me know about a couple of your favorite games on this amazing library. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, don't forget to put a like on this video, please subscribe to the channel, and take care of yourselves, take care of the gaming community, and game a lot.